you, what was life like growing up as a kid?
Growing up, well, I guess I won't go into too many details, but my parents were split when I was growing up. So living in separate households, 50-50. My mother lived in Columbus. However, her address was thankfully Dublin City Schools. My father lived in Pickerington for most of my life. So kind of different sides of Columbus there. But I've got an older brother and I've got a younger sister as well. So I'm the middle child. Um, yeah, I mean, I guess we didn't have a whole lot of family growing up. So it was kind of just, just us
Yeah.
and, played sports growing up, that sort of thing. So I had a relatively normal childhood, nothing too crazy, so to speak.
Did you end up going to college and that career path, or did you jump into, the workforce and start, working right out of high school? What was kind of that next step for you?
So I actually did not go to college. I got into real estate actually right when I was 18, believe it or not.
Wow.
Yeah, so I started the classes to get my license the day after high school graduation. I graduated May 18th and I started the classes May 19th of 2019. Yeah, 2019. So yeah, so I got into real estate right out of high school. Before that, I was serving I worked at Bob Evans. I worked at BJ's over at Tuttle in Dublin, just kind of bussing tables as well. So I'd been working since I was 16. Was it 15, 16? One of the two. I think it was 16. Um, so yeah, I was doing that. Kind of that's how I paid for real estate school. Um, and then I got licensed in September of 2019. So it took me about 3 months to get my license. So it wasn't terrible. I did my schooling online just because I was working a full-time job at the
Yeah.
time. So it was a little bit more convenient for me to do the classes online and kind of go at my own pace.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, because I think I've only ever had maybe one, maybe two other people that got into real estate right out of high school,
Yeah.
because typically, right, like it's real estate's not your first career choice. Typically in our industry, it's your second, your fifth.
Yeah.
Um, did you have a passion for real estate growing up? Like, how did you decide that was the move for you?
No, no. So my father worked at PNC Bank, and he actually still does work there. He's a mortgage loan officer at PNC Bank. Um, when I was in high school, I always thought to myself, I was a huge history nerd, but I was like, I'm not going to go be a historian because they don't make any money. Um, Law really fascinated me, but it terrified me at the same time because I don't want to say a lot of people, but I knew a handful of people that went to, become a lawyer, went to law school, and then, they're 25, 26 years old. They just spent 6, 7 years in college and they're like, oh, I hate this. I don't want to do this. So I was like, I really don't want to do that. And when I was working at Bob Evans and BJ's, I met a lot of people, and I mean a lot of people, whether they were, people that worked there or just like regular customers that I, formed a relationship with. A lot of them had college degrees, but they weren't using their degree. And whenever I came across that type of person, I always asked them the same thing. It was, why are you doing, work? Why are you working at Bob Evans or why are you working at BJ's when you have a degree? And it was oftentimes the same two answers. It was either they went to college thinking they knew what they wanted to do when they were 18, 19. And then by the time they realized it was too late and that they didn't want to actually use it, they were like, screw it. I'll just go ahead and get my degree and then I'll kind of just figure it out from there. And then they end up not using that degree. Or it was, their parents kind of forced them into it type of deal. So I didn't want to make that same mistake, man.
Yeah.
College was a big commitment. My parents weren't exactly the most financially stable, so it was going to be me and myself. Like I couldn't rely on them to help me with anything. So it was going to be taking out student loans and that idea just again did not sound appealing to me at the time. So I was like, you know what? I'll just kind of I'll take some time and figure it out. My father had talked to me about becoming a realtor because he knew a couple people that were friends of his that were realtors. And he was like, why don't you try out real estate? So I had done some research on it, the classes, the education requirements, that sort of thing. My senior year of high school, learned that it was relatively minuscule compared to actually going to college. It was 120 hours of schooling, and then from there it was take the test. Schooling wasn't terribly expensive, so I was like, I'll give this a shot for a few years. I think I gave myself 2 or 3 years to figure it out. I said I'll try real estate for 2 or 3 years, and if I don't like it, or if I'm just not making any money, I'll just go to college or I'll do something else. I'll figure it out from there. And I'll only be 21, 22 years old by then.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm at right now. I'm 22 years old, going to be turning 23 in March. But so, yeah, I gave it a shot. Here I am. I've been licensed for, what is it? So 2019. So, wow, 4 years already. September was 4 years now. Still going strong, thankfully. But yeah, that was kind of my path into real estate and how I got into it. It was the idea from my father and the fear of not wanting to go to college and being a bunch of debt. So,
You know what?